Welcome to the Clark Township Planning Board meeting Thursday, December 4th, 2025. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by mailing the annual scheduled meetings to the Star Ledger, Union County Local Source, The Leader, formerly known as Union County Hawk, and Tap into Clark by posting such annual meeting schedule on the bulletin board in Town Hall reserved for such announcements, and by the proper filing of said notice with the Township Clerk. Formal action may be taken at this meeting. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must always be maintained. I'm going to take attendance. Mayor Albanese.
Here.
Mr. Ulrich.
Here.
Councilman Minetti.
Here.
Mr. Koch.
Here.
Mr. Triola.
Here.
Mr. Altman. Mr. Steinberg. Mr. Gribb.
Here.
Mr. Gronkowski.
Here.
Mr. Gerstner.
Here.
Mr. Cecil. Mr. Cruz.
Here.
Mr. O'Connor.
Here.
Mr. Ricky. Tim Weber. And Mr. Troutman. Okay, can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes of our last meeting, November 6, 2025? If so, any questions or comments? Hearing none, I make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any noes? Opposed? Okay, passes. Correspondence. All correspondence to the planning board is available at Town Hall for the public purview. They can come in during normal business hours and review. As such, I make a motion to dispense with the readings of the correspondence. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is it Eric or Bill? Bill. Thank you, Bill. Resolution to approve the meeting dates for 2026. Does anyone have any questions or comments? I make a motion to approve those dates. Do I have a second? Bill, that you? Nope. Eric. Thank you, Eric.
Aye.
All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Subdivision site plan application memorialization, Primavera Parkview LLC, 7 Atkin Drive, Block 21, Lot 17. Has everyone had a chance to review the document? Any questions, comments? Seeing none, I make a motion to approve that. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. All in favor? Is this a roll call?
No roll call.
Yes.
Mayor Albanese.
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich.
Yes.
Councilman Minetti.
Yes.
Mr. Koch.
Yes.
Mr. Triola.
Yes.
Mr. Gribb.
Yes.
Mr. Gronkowski.
Yes.
Mr. Gerstner.
Yes.
Application memorialized.
Our site application tonight is for Clark Broadway Associates, 52 Westfield Avenue, Block 105, lots 1.01, 2, 21, 22, and 26.01. I'd like to have Counselor give an overview of this application and previous ones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This matter originally came before the board on October 2, 2025. However, the applicant requested an adjournment until tonight, December 4, 2025. At the October 2, 2025 meeting, I announced that the application would not be heard that night and that it was being carried to tonight without further notice. I reviewed the affidavit of publication and service for the October 2, 2025 hearing and find that the board has jurisdiction to hear the application tonight. This application is governed by the redevelopment plan adopted by the Township Council, and where the redevelopment plan does not establish a standard by the underlying downtown village district ordinance. By way of further background, this property and its potential redevelopment has been before the board previously. The introduction to the redevelopment plan for this property provides a history of the redevelopment process. And I'll briefly review that. On June 4, 2018, the Township Council directed the Planning Board to undertake a preliminary investigation to determine whether the Westfield Avenue study area, 81 Westfield Avenue, and 52 Westfield Avenue at the corner of Broadway and Joseph Street, met the statutory criteria to be designated a condemnation area in need of redevelopment pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law. This board completed that preliminary investigation study and held a public hearing on August 2, 2018. At the completion of the public hearing, the board recommended that the Township Council designate the area as an area in need of condemnation redevelopment. The Municipal Council on September 17, 2018, determined that Westfield Avenue, again, the same location, met the statutory criteria and designated it as an area in need of condemnation redevelopment. Thereafter, Clark Broadway Associates, LLC, made an application for preliminary and final site plan approval. On May 6, 2021, the board held a public hearing on that application and granted approval. On June 3, 2021, that approval was memorialized by the board in a written resolution. That approval included residential apartments with 12 affordable units to meet a portion of the township's third-round affordable housing obligation, which apartments would be over retail space. However, that approval was not constructed, and a portion of the township's third-round affordable housing obligation was not met. Since then, the bank building at the corner of this L-shaped parcel became vacant and has remained vacant, allowing the township to reconsider the scope of the area as an area in redevelopment. On June 21 of this year, 2025, the Township Council, that approval has remained dormant, but there is a further step, and that step is that on June 21, 2025, the Township Council introduced Ordinance 2025 proposing an amended and restated redevelopment plan for the property. On August 7, 2025, the board found that the amended redevelopment to be substantially consistent with the master plan. The purpose of my reciting this history is to indicate that this property has been under active consideration and review by both the Township Council and the Planning Board. Prior to tonight, a portion or all of this property has been before both bodies in public hearings and public meetings, twice to study whether the area was in need of redevelopment, twice to review redevelopment plans, once before this board for preliminary and final site plan approval. All of these actions have been in public and have been with public participation if the public so desired. Again, the point of this recitation is not to bore you, but to describe to you that this process followed a vetting process and the potential for redevelopment of this property. This public process follows tonight with this hearing. With the finding that the board has jurisdiction and the above background, Mr. Chair, the applicant can proceed to make their presentation.
Thank you, Counselor, for that overview of the history of this application. Counselor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Cruz. For the record, my name is Peter Flannery with the law firm of Bisgayer Hoff on behalf of the applicant, Clark Broadway Associates, LLC. With respect to the property at 52 Westfield Avenue, it's located in the Westfield Avenue redevelopment plan area. The applicant tonight is seeking preliminary and final major site plan approvals to construct a 4-story inclusionary mixed-use building consisting of approximately 138 residential apartments over approximately 5,900 square feet of retail, ground level, as well as over parking, and there are various other site improvements. This would produce approximately 21 affordable housing units. The project is governed by and in full compliance with the amended and restated Westfield Avenue redevelopment plan, ordinance 25-25, which was adopted by the Township Council on August 18th, 2025. The project also assists Clark, of course, in satisfying a portion of its affordable housing obligations. It's part of the latest 2025 fourth round housing plan, still satisfying a portion of the third round obligation. There was a technical review committee meeting that was held where a lot of the issues in the review letters were discussed. We'll hear more about that in testimony tonight. The applicant has also been designated as the conditional redeveloper of the site as of November 17th, 2025 by the Township Council. There's a conditional redeveloper agreement which has been executed by the applicant and escrow funds per that agreement submitted. Eventually, the applicant will enter into a redevelopment agreement with the township, setting forth various responsibilities and obligations regarding the proposed inclusionary development before the board tonight. I'd like to bring forward, with the board's permission, our witnesses. We have 3 expert witnesses we plan on presenting this evening. Engineering, architecture, and traffic engineering. All these professionals submitted materials as part of the application. I'd like to start with Trevor Curtis, who's our civil engineering expert with L2A Land Design.
Please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Trevor Curtis,
Solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will tell the truth
that I will tell the truth
and nothing but the truth
and nothing but the truth
in this proceeding.
in this proceeding,
God.
so help me God.
Please state and spell your name and your employer.
My name is Trevor Curtis, Trevor. I work with L2A Land Design based out of Englewood, New Jersey.
Mr. Curtis, if you could just briefly for the board state your education, experience, licensure.
Sure. I have a bachelor's in science and civil engineering from Rutgers University. I graduated in 2013. I've been a licensed civil engineer in the state of New Jersey for the past 7 years or
Make a
so.
motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. You may continue.
I believe we have some exhibits that we're going to be presenting this evening. Got our thumb drive here, digital.
Mr. Flannery, as you go through the exhibits, would you please identify them as A1 and describe what the exhibit is?
Yes. So we'll mark this Exhibit A1. Mr. Curtis, if you could just briefly describe the exhibit.
So to start off, I wanted to bring up just a simple Google Earth aerial exhibit of the subject properties to get the board as well as the public familiar with the site as it currently exists today. So on this sheet is just a Google Earth image, the most current image on Google, which indicates the existing grocer on the central portion of the property in the black color, which has been vacant for a number of years, I believe nearly 20 years, surrounded by a rather large area of asphalt, the former parking areas. And the site is accessed via Westfield Avenue to the south, Broadway to the north, and Joseph Street to the west. At the southwestern corner of the property lies the existing bank with dual drive-through, with additional asphalt surfaces surrounding that building, as well as a number of curb cuts. So I wanted to familiarize the board with what the site looked like today prior to going into the plans, the civil plans, and the color renderings that I've prepared for tonight's hearing. A little additional information on the existing site. The existing site slopes in a southerly direction, with Broadway being at a higher elevation than Westfield. Stormwater runoff is not currently detained with any known stormwater management measures. Essentially, stormwater runoff from existing conditions can flow off the site undetained, nearly all of it being tributary to Westfield Avenue. There are a number of existing curb cuts around the site. In fact, there are 5 existing curb cuts throughout the entire property. There are 2 existing curb cuts on Westfield Avenue, 1 existing curb cut on Joseph Street, and 2 existing curb cuts on Broadway. A total of 5 curb cuts for the entire property in question. The property is about 2.230 acres in total. It consists of a number of parcels, as Mr. Flannery outlined. The proposed improvements would include the entirety of that 2.23 acres, as well as the surrounding streetscape, including a reconstruction of all of the sidewalks, curbing, and associated street trees and streetscape with around the entire perimeter of the site. I'm going to go right into the site plan that was prepared for this, except we're going to mark this as an exhibit because it was not submitted to the board.
This will be A2.
Exhibit A2 is a near replica of the sheet CO4 site plan that was submitted to the board as part of this application. The major difference is that this plan is colorized to identify the proposed improvements, including the building, grass or landscaped areas, new asphalt areas, curb cuts, striping, etc. There's one additional change that is on this plan that resulted from the TRC meeting prior to this hearing, and that resulted from a comment regarding curb radii. If anybody is noticing the minute details, some of the original curb radii for the driveways was 15 feet, and I changed it to a minimum of 20 feet to comply with those comments before I forget going through the testimony of this plan. The large brown area in the middle would be the extent of the proposed building. The proposed building is a 3-story residential over ground floor parking and commercial retail. The commercial retail component is at the southwest corner of the site, consisting of about 5,900 square feet. During the architectural testimony, we'll go over more about the interior workings of the building, but essentially, all ground floor parking can accommodate the required 1.7 spaces per unit. There are a total of 138 residential units on the upper 3 floors. These 236 parking spaces in the garage are accommodated through 77 tandem spaces and 82 single spaces. And we do have additional testimony prepared for that during the traffic testimony regarding parking and circulation. Access to the ground floor garage would be proposed via Joseph Street and Broadway, 2 full movement access driveways. I highlight that because there are 5, as I mentioned before, existing curb cuts, including 2 on Westfield Avenue that would be eliminated as part of this proposal. Essentially continuing the pedestrian sidewalk and on-street parking along Westfield Avenue. In addition to the on-street parking on Westfield, we do have a 45-foot long loading area which through the more recent years has become more and more important for temporary loading, specifically UPS, Amazon Prime, things of that nature. This area could also be utilized as a move-in, move-out area, which would be managed by the building and coordinated with management. Additional on-street spaces on Joseph Street and Broadway are provided in an angular fashion, which is required under the redevelopment plan. There are 11 new spaces along Joseph Street, which are angled at 45 degrees, and there are 16 spaces along Broadway angled at 60 degrees. The redevelopment plan requires 11 along Joseph and 14 along Broadway. We're providing 2 additional spaces than required on street, and ADA space is provided as well on Joseph Street to facilitate and activate that corner, especially with the retail component at the southwest corner of the site. EV parking will be provided in the garage for the residential use. That is a state law now. 15% of all residential parking spaces would be required to comply with that EV requirement. I note that we are not taking credit for any spaces for zoning purposes. The current law for EV spaces allows a 2-space credit for up to 10% of the proposed parking. So if there are 236 spaces, essentially you would be allowed a 23-space credit. We're not taking the credit. I acknowledge it because it's relatively new law and it comes up from time to time during hearings these days. We are providing the EV spaces as required, but we are not taking the credit. And we'll have further testimony from the architect and the traffic engineer that will elaborate more on the parking requirements with the tandem and the single spaces and management. Additional improvements per the redevelopment plan include approximately 20-foot wide sidewalk along Westfield Avenue and 10-foot wide sidewalks along Joseph and Broadway. It really interconnects this corner and provides that looping pedestrian access from Westfield Avenue to Broadway, creating these large, generously large sidewalks along the facade of the building, and to further activate that corner. There are additional streetscape amenities that are provided, benches, new PSE&G street poles around the entire property, trash receptacles, things of that nature. The street trees, I do note, are spaced about 40 feet. On the planner's letter, Mr. Ritchie outlines that some minor adjustments to the street trees related to the spacing, which I have no issue with. There are also some minor comments that we had discussed prior to the hearing regarding some sidewalk. I have no issues with making minor adjustments to the streetscape. The streetscape is buffered by a landscape strip or a planter strip between the building and the sidewalk, and additional street trees are proposed around the remainder of the site in less standard street tree style than Westfield Avenue, where you have a typical tree pit. These street trees essentially would just provide that aesthetic look and, that shade for the sidewalk areas. In total, the site proposes 19 new shade trees and 163 shrubs. We thought it was important to really landscape, especially up against the building, just to provide that nice aesthetic, walkable environment around the property. And the building includes undulations, which is contemplated in that redevelopment plan, so that it doesn't look as much of a long linear building. It breaks it up as you walk through these brand new streetscape areas. And I'll quickly go over zoning. I brush over it because the project meets all the requirements that the redevelopment plan outlines. There are no variances associated with this plan. And, I mean, that's really all I have about the zoning. It's totally compliant. Coverage, as compared to existing conditions, is actually decreased, and I have it on the plan. We're decreasing coverage or increasing the open space pervious areas by approximately 1,377 square feet, which is important as we go through the remainder of the testimony talking about grading and drainage, which I think the entire site is mostly a building, so the civil is mostly limited to, stormwater management, grading around the perimeter of the property. So I note that it is important because under proposed conditions, we are providing stormwater management, which I believe is one of the more significant improvements as compared to existing conditions. As I mentioned earlier, the existing site drains almost entirely to Westfield Avenue with no known measures of stormwater control. Essentially, all the runoff is captured by inlets or roof drains and piped directly with no control to Westfield Avenue and Joseph Street. So under proposed conditions, what the building does is it eliminates nearly all of the asphalt surfaces that are there under existing conditions. The DEP has hammered in their most recent rules the significance of reducing regulated motor vehicle surfaces, what are essentially asphalt or drivable surfaces. The water quality impacts that drivable surfaces that are left untreated and uncontrolled is one of the more significant rule changes from 2023 that the state issued under their new regulations. So what the proposed improvements does is it takes all that asphalt and it changes it to clean roof runoff. NJDEP stormwater rules consider runoff from roofs as a clean source of runoff as opposed to asphalt, which is a negative impact to water quality, especially tributary to existing municipal systems. So under proposed conditions, not only are we reducing the impervious coverage, the site decreases asphalt and concrete by 54,159 square feet about. So it may seem like an insignificant number, but when it comes down to water quality, it's a significant improvement as compared to existing conditions. Part of the stormwater management design was to show or prove that the site does not increase runoff tributary to Westfield Avenue or Joseph Street, that intersection, which is at the southwest corner of the site. It's not enough to just show that it doesn't increase stormwater. We did implement, as per my discussions with Mr. O'Connor, the engineer, prior to finalizing the design of the plans, a series of stormwater detention tanks below the building. These detention tanks will control runoff from the roof. Essentially, roof runoff will be piped down the building columns into the subsurface detention basins and control that runoff prior to going into the Westfield Avenue and Joseph Street's municipal stormwater systems. Why is that important? Because under current conditions, all of that runoff uncontrolled during a large storm event, for example, a 25 or 100-year storm, those pipes are at or below capacity. So slowing the runoff underneath the building in these stormwater systems is a significant improvement because it allows runoff to leave the site slower and miss the peak and improve the capacity of the downstream systems. So that's essentially one of the paramount design aspects is that it provides a significant quality and quantity improvement to the site as it currently exists today. There are a number of other improvements related to utilities that would be related to sanitary, water, gas, and electric. In particular, the sanitary will discharge to Broadway and to Joseph in two separate locations to split up the flow and not concentrate it all in one spot. Water will connect to Joseph Street near the southwest corner of the site. Gas will connect to the existing gas main located along Westfield Avenue. And electric will be pulled off Broadway to a transformer. I do note that utility coordination is ongoing. We have contacted utility agencies, in particular New Jersey American Water, to ensure that we do have the adequate pressure for fire, which is something that came up during the TRC meeting with the fire official. So we have reached out and coordinated hydrant flow tests, as well as where exactly connection points should be made to provide the most pressure for the building to get that fire suppression. Additional testimony can be given from the architects regarding all of the interior improvements and utilities that are being proposed for the building. See. So from a jurisdictional standpoint, the property would require approval from the county because Westfield Avenue is a county, under county jurisdiction. So county approval would be required as part of this application. Soil erosion approval would be required, as well as various utility permits and approval from the DEP for a treatment works approval due to the effluent being discharged under proposed conditions. I have no objection to any of the comments that were issued from Mr. O'Connor's engineering report or Mr. Ritchie's planning report. I have spoken to them prior to the hearing to coordinate and agree that for the, if approved, that any of these comments would be addressed during compliance. I would note that one other item that did come up during conversation is that one of the light poles was mowed down by a U-Haul truck. That would be replaced as part of this project. We do have a number of new PSE&G pole-mounted fixtures proposed along the facade of the property, in addition to some wall-mounted fixtures to provide that safe and adequate pedestrian passage throughout the Westfield Avenue, Joseph Street, and Broadway rights-of-way. One item that I didn't bring up is that Joseph Street does have that new angled parking, whereas under existing conditions, it is a two-way street. Proposed conditions will change the direction of Joseph Street to a one-way street, and we do have additional testimony on that from our traffic engineer. I just wanted to bring that up as a precursor to one additional change that was essentially generated from the redevelopment plan due to the angled on-street spaces. There is sufficient backup maneuver for Joseph Street and Broadway. In fact, Joseph Street has 15 and a half feet of backup maneuver for that one-way street, whereas 13 feet is required under the general land development ordinance. And that is for the 45-degree spaces. 60-degree spaces need about 18 feet, and we have just over 18 feet to the first yellow double line. One more quick item is that as part of the reconstruction of all the streetscape, we would reconstruct the ADA ramps in accordance with the current federal ADA standards and maintain the required slopes to provide that ADA access throughout the site. That's all I have for my direct testimony, and I leave it to the architect and the traffic engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. That's all we have at this time for direct testimony from Mr. Curtis. I don't know if the board would like to ask him questions or...
I see you've got towards Westfield Avenue, there's hashed out line. I guess that's for accessibility for the tenants. It also butts up against, you have tandem parking all across there. It also butts up against what's labeled as a trash room. How is garbage going to get picked up?
We have testimony prepared for that, but from my understanding, that trash would be picked up from the Joseph Street side, walk through the building to the Joseph Street side, not on Westfield.
Our architect will go into a little more detail on that, Mr. Chairman.
Does anyone on the board have any questions regarding this testimony? Seeing none?
I have a couple of follow-ups. You indicated that there was an on-street loading area.
Yes, that loading area actually would be required to get mayor and council approval. We are proposing it, but it is subject to approval by mayor and council. We think it's something that provides a significant benefit, especially in an area where double parking is a potential.
So if the board were inclined to grant this application, that would be a condition of approval.
Yes.
Yes.
You also indicated that all of the comments made by Mr. O'Connor in his September 10, 2025 letter are acceptable to you and would be acceptable as conditions.
Yes.
And the same is true for the Mr. Ricky's letter of September 25th. Is that correct?
Yes.
You did not address the fire official's memorandum of September 11th, 2025. Are you going to address that, or is someone else going to address that?
So we have the architecture planning to address it, but I would note that if any comments translated to civil changes, I would agree to make those changes in coordination with the fire official.
Could you just show us where that loading would be?
You can see the striped loading area, 45 feet long, along the frontage of Westfield.
All right, thank you. Counselor, you?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, hearing nobody on the board has any questions. If anyone from the public wishes to come forward regarding this testimony and this testimony only, you have a chance at the end of the meeting for general comments. Please come forward, state your name, spell it, and your address.
Sure. Eric Rodriguez, 12 Bartel. So I had a question regarding the lighting on Westfield Ave. Are the existing lights going to be retained? And are you going to add any similar to it on the other sides of the property?
So this question did come up. The PSE&G fixtures have actually been updated since these were installed. Even if I tried to save them, I don't think it's going to be possible. They would be replaced with the newest PSE&G fixtures and spaced between the street trees. And they would continue around the perimeter of the property to provide that safe and adequate pedestrian passage throughout the site.
And then the other question I had, the angled parking, is that taking over a portion of the street, or is that all on your property?
The angled parking is not on our property. It's in the public right-of-way, but it does not encroach upon within any existing facilities on Broadway.
And then the last question on that, are those going to be all public, or will any of them be like designated as part of the building, specific tenants or anything along those lines?
So those spaces are for public use. All of the spaces within the garage would be for the building itself.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to come forward? Please state your name and address.
Barbara White, 7 Harding Avenue. My first question is, are you going to fumigate the current building? I know it was done several years ago when the planning was started, but I'm sure it's full of wildlife, and I don't want to see rats and things coming down my street when they start tearing down the building.
Yes, that's a requirement for demolition permit. So prior to getting the demolition permit, they would have to bait and trap anything in the building.
Okay. And then if I have questions about parking, should it be addressed now or when the traffic?
Probably best for the traffic engineer.
Okay, I'll come back.
Thank you.
Excuse me. We were going to go through everyone with their questions, and let me just give a word of caution. We're going to do one round of questioning, so if you have a question, get it ready. This is not a round robin, okay?
No, you
No,
can go
no,
ahead.
for this witness, for this engineer. It's the civil engineer that we're asking questions about. There will be other witnesses. You will get that opportunity. But what I'm talking about is, Mr. Rodriguez already questioned once. He was standing up for a second time. The rest of the public has to have an opportunity, and then the next witness will go forward.
Hi, Claire Labruno, 20 Post Road. My first question is, you spoke about the setback on Westfield Avenue being 20 feet. What is it currently? I guess like road to building. And then the same for Joseph Street. You said it's going to be 10 foot, and I wondered I think it's a little more now. What is it now?
So I'll zoom into the existing and proposed. So the zoning table outlines the existing and the proposed setbacks from Westfield, Joseph, and Broadway. So Westfield existing 11.5, proposed 20.8. Joseph Street existing 24.2, proposed 12.6. Broadway existing 65.4, proposed 11.9. Whereas you can also see what the permitted redevelopment plan requirements are. So we are meeting the redevelopment plan requirements. Some may be closer, but some may be further away.
I'd also I think it detailed, and you mentioned tree replacement. It looked like 9 trees. And again, like how many, what's being removed, I guess. And that's the replacement of.
We can go to the plans that were submitted as part of the application. So I'm bringing up the civil plans that were, do we mark the plans?
That's what the chair just said. You should mark it. And those are the landscaping plans?
So this is the demolition plan, and highlighted in blue X's would be the existing trees that are being removed. If you can zoom in, a lot of the trees are actually within the public right-of-way and being replaced on site. There are, and I'll count approximately 11 trees that would be removed. So as part of proposed conditions, we're proposing 19 new trees and 163 shrubs.
Hello, good evening. My name is Gabrielle Arruda. I live at 33C Parkway Drive. My question was also related to the trees. And I was wondering if the committee council might hold the business to the idea of having to supply non-invasive and native to New Jersey trees and shrubs. It's one thing to take down It's one thing to take down, old growth trees and put up something that's quite inexpensive from a landscaper, as opposed to, or something that's invasive and will bring more pests to our community. So I would like to see that they're responsible for putting native trees and shrubs in, and perhaps also for the old growth trees that they're taking down, perhaps you might make them have to plant additional trees elsewhere in Clark or within Union County to As Trevor, I heard your name say, as Trevor mentioned, he talked about the trees as being aesthetic, and I think the trees are far more than aesthetic in our community, and we're losing
Questions,
a lot of them.
not comments.
Oh, thank you, sorry.
Questions.
My first time here. I appreciate it.
It's a good question, and I believe Mr. Ricky's letter outlines that the condition of approval is to get shade tree approval, I believe. I can find it.
I could jump in. Yeah, the township has an ordinance that's pertaining to the number of trees and the breast height diameter that you take down. Based on the breast height diameter, you have to replant specific trees to replace the trees that were taken down. So that is all part of the township ordinance, and that would be a condition of approval after we just see what trees you're going to be taking out, what the breast height is, and how we would approach that.
John Rafoa, 40 Broadway. Thank you for coming tonight, appreciate it, and thank you for being the first one up. So, first thing, electrical load. So you mentioned, right, so obviously PSE&G has to come out. The load on existing homes in the area, how is that going to change, right? Oh, sorry, how's the load going to be assessed and then adjusted as appropriate?
It goes through a very actually rigorous coordination with PSE&G. We essentially give them all of the metrics for the building that get included in the load data, and PSE&G makes a determination of whether or not a transformer, pole-mounted, pad-mounted transformer is required, and what the electric load does on the surrounding area. They provide an opinion in whether or not infrastructure has to be improved prior to doing that. We don't anticipate any of the surrounding areas being impacted, but that does all go into, in fact, before even submitting an application, just to have a discussion with them, all of this information is provided almost up front for that particular reason, to ensure that it has no impact on the surrounding area. There are existing or were previously existing uses on the property. I realize they've been vacant for a long time. So they take into consideration existing and proposed, and they do look at that.
Okay, yeah, just, it is, you're right, 20 years ago there was something there, but 138 units consume a bit more than what was there, right? So thank you, though. Wastewater, that's the other topic. So there are reports in the area, right, at times of certain homes having challenges with wastewater movement. This is going to significantly increase, obviously, 138 residents, right, or units. How is that treated as well?
So there are a number of approvals that wastewater or sanitary effluent goes through in order to get approved. It's layered. So on top of getting approval from the planning board, review from the engineer, it gets reviewed and approved by the engineer, a form is signed, it gets reviewed and approved by Rahway Valley Sewerage Authority, it gets signed, and then it gets reviewed and approved by the state of New Jersey under a treatment works approval application, and then a permit is issued. It's actually one of the longer permits to get. So there's a rigorous review that goes into this to ensure that there are no negative impacts and that the treatment facility can handle that flow. And I did mention that we are splitting the flow as to not concentrate it into one spot, but any comments that are issued from any of these jurisdictional agencies have to be addressed in order to connect, physically connect.
All right, thank you. And so parking on Broadway, if you could you go back to that drawing, if that's okay?
So I'm changing back to the colorized site plan. A2.
Thank you. So those spots on Broadway, you mentioned that there's plenty of, you're not encroaching onto the current property today, so that means that it's essentially the blacktop that's there today, the asphalt, that's all that remains, because to back up onto and maybe this is for the traffic person, but I did want to talk to you about the clearance, and then I have another point for the traffic and visual.
So
is there enough clearance, I guess is where I'm going.
So between the back of the angled space and the center line of the road is 18 feet, which is what's required for a backup maneuver of an angled space of 45 degrees. 60 degrees on Broadway. So we do have a traffic engineer, not next, but after the architect, that will further elaborate. They, just for your knowledge, which I haven't testified to, during the TRC meeting, comments came up about traffic on Broadway. So after the TRC, we went out, or the traffic engineer and his team went out and did additional counts to ensure what you're saying, there are enough, gaps to make turns onto Broadway and to facilitate testimony for the backup maneuvers for the cars.
I don't know what the right challenge is. Living across the street where the spot, there is no way that today that's 18 feet from the curb to the center line. Impossible. Impossible. Just because I live there, if I didn't live there for 25 years, it'd be different. So maybe if there's something I could review, that's great. Show you a measuring tape and a picture. Awesome.
Oh, and the plans are public, so you can definitely have a chance to go look at the plans, and the dimensions are on the plans, and it may be deceiving. I don't know.
Okay. And who do we talk to about schooling? Is that the architect?
About what?
In terms of schooling, so 138 units, how's our town going to address that? Is that in the open forum, or?
That would be a public comment. This board is concerned with whether or not the town ordinances are met. In this particular case, the redevelopment plan that's been referred to, and if the redevelopment plan has a gap in it, then to the underlying zoning for the DV district, DTV district. The law presumes that when the council adopts that kind of legislation, that it has considered that. So that is really a township council question, not a question for this board. As I said, the issue is, does the plan conform or not conform to the redevelopment plan?
Fair enough, thank you. I was asking only because the number of units, that's part of this proposal. Okay, fair enough, thank you. And then height, is that civil or is it architect?
Architecture.
Okay, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
And one quick note, I don't want to overdo it. The on-street spaces are not something we're proposing, it's something that's required. Those angled spaces we're required to put those in under the redevelopment plan. So all of our parking is satisfied in the building. We don't anticipate using those spaces to facilitate parking for our building.
I understood, so I should have been here in 2018 is what you're saying. Understood, thank you.
Does anyone else wish to come forward? Seeing no one, Counselor?
Well, there's a lady that in the corner.
Good catch.
I do want to call Rodriguez again because I had only one set of questions after.
Everyone, my name's Jackie Tamillo. I live at 96 Ivy Street. I had a quick question about that grassy patch by Joseph Street intersection. Can you tell me how far that is sticking out? It looks like it kind of comes out onto Westfield Avenue to make room for those parking spots?
Yes, so it's I guess the technical term is it's a curb extension. It's a traffic calming for the on-street spaces and pedestrian movements in that area. But what the design does is it does not encroach into the right-of-way of Westfield. So we maintain everything that was outside the travel lane and manipulated the curb line to provide that traffic calming for pedestrians walking across the street. Essentially extend the area into Joseph Street so that people don't have to walk as far to get to the other side. It's a pedestrian safety thing.
Was there any consideration of a crosswalk across Westfield Avenue, or is that a county question?
It's subject to to county approval, anything within the right-of-way. In fact, all of the improvements being shown here are subject to their approval, but no crosswalk going in the southerly direction was contemplated.
Would you be open to considering that, or is that something the board? I know that there's going to be another apartment complex across the street, almost, and there are no crosswalks in that area. It might just be something.
I would say that I couldn't agree that we will do it, but I can agree that we could talk to the county about it. And there's traffic testimony who will talk more about circulation, and maybe he has a better opinion than I do, but I couldn't agree to it unless the county says it's something that they want to tackle in this application.
Asbestos.
And you're willing to make that a condition of approval, that you will raise this issue with the county without any further action of this board?
Yes.
I have a question about asbestos abatement. Was that done in 2020, or does that still have to be done at the current property? I found something today, an application that was made in 2020 for asbestos abatement.
Part of the demolition permit, they have to do the road extermination as well as provide a survey that asbestos is free or that it was removed. So when they come to get the demolition permit, all that will be taken care of.
Okay, so if they do find asbestos, I guess they have.
They'll have to abate it before they take it.
Okay,
Or
okay.
it becomes more expensive for demolition material disposal.
Okay. I think that's all my questions.
Counselor, just 1 second.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Rodriguez got up a second time, and I had not informed the public that there would be only one opportunity for questions. So when you got up a second time, you didn't know what the procedure would be. So if you have a second question for this engineer, that would be fine.
Sure. Eric Rodriguez, 12 Bartel. So the only question I had, someone else already kind of hinted at it, but it related to the utility electric load and whether or not this particular development would be paying any sort of amount of money towards the cost of any upgrades that the grid may need that would otherwise be passed on to the ratepayers in the community.
Well, that
That's more
is
a
a
question.
different question than was asked before.
Right.
This property is in a redevelopment area, a condemnation redevelopment area. It would be eligible for a pilot program, a payment in lieu of taxes program, or a financial agreement, but that's for the township council to consider, not for this board. But a pilot agreement or a financial agreement would be part of
Talking more about utilities.
oh, I'm sorry, utilities?
Yeah, because like if there was like if they had to upgrade the substation, let's say by ShopRite in part because of this particular development and the load that it might create.
I
That was
apologize,
more.
you could, go ahead.
I don't have the answer at this time because we haven't gone that far into the process. I don't anticipate, nor in my experience have seen extensive substation improvements due to one development. But at this time, I don't know the answer. It's possible. Anything's possible.
When would that be determined? Upon review by the utility company of what the needs for this development are?
Yes. So when we submit any kind of question, PSE&G does not answer the question unless they have a project number. They don't get a project number until we give them load data. Once they get the load data, the questions come in about whether or not the infrastructure can handle it, if there are additional improvements, or if there are no additional improvements. Essentially, that's how it comes from PSE&G, so we wouldn't know at this time until you submit an application. And typically, you don't do PSE&G applications until you get approval from the board and you start doing your construction drawings. These are board architectural drawings. They're not construction drawings, so there's a lot that goes into the load data. But from a preliminary standpoint, we know that certain requirements are required from PSE&G, but their system itself, we would have no knowledge of. They would have to tell it to us.
Got it. So that was really the only thing, just that if there were improvements, that would be considered, that they might contribute some portion to offset the impact to the community of the cost of those upgrades for all of the other ratepayers. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to come forward? Seeing no one, counsel, you may continue with the next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll have our architect up next.
Please state your name and repeat after me.
Avelino Martinez,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will tell the truth
that I will tell the truth
and nothing but the truth
and nothing but the truth
in this proceeding,
in this proceeding.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Please state your name and spell it and your employer.
Avelino Martinez, that's Avelino Martinez, Martinez, with Blackbird Group Architects.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez, if you could just briefly for the board state your education, experience, and licensure.
Sure. I hold a bachelor's degree in architecture. I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey, as well as a number of other states. I appear regularly before...
I move to accept.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May continue.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez, I believe you also have some exhibits.
I do. So if I may, I'd like to begin with, this is the set of architectural drawings that were submitted with the application. It's a total of 10 sheets, last dated August 26th of 2025.
We'll mark these Exhibit A4.
Okay. Okay. So as you heard, we spoke a little bit about the orientation of the building, the placement of the project. In terms of overall data, the building is a total of 138 total dwelling units, and that is broken up into a combination of 117 market rate units and 21 affordable housing units. The affordable units are broken down in a combination of 3 one-bedrooms, 12 two-bedrooms, and 6 three-bedrooms. And the market rate units are 17 one-bedrooms, 88 two-bedrooms, and 12 three-bedrooms. So referring to drawing A1 of Exhibit A4, which is the ground floor plan, this exhibit is very similar to the site plan we saw where Westfield Avenue is located along the bottom of the sheet here. We have Joseph Street on the left side and then Broadway on the top side of the page. Along the Westfield Avenue elevation, we have the the residential pedestrian entrance, if you will, would be at the center of the building. So that's the area I'm pointing to here at the bottom of the page. And that would take someone to the elevators, mail room, package room, and some amenity space for tenants in this area as well. To the left side of that, or on the corner of Joseph and Westfield Avenue, we have a commercial retail space. It's approximately 5,900 square feet. And there currently is no tenant selected at this time, and it's currently shown as one space, but the possibility does exist that that may be broken up into 2 smaller tenants, depending on the final tenant selection at that time. The primary entrance, or ceremonial entrance, if you will, we'll see that on the exterior elevations, but that is oriented towards the corner of Joseph and Westfield Avenue. The remainder of the ground floor, the blue area we see here, is dedicated to parking. So that's a total of 236 parking spaces for the residential use. And tenants from that garage, which would be entering either from the Joseph Street or the Broadway driveway access points, would be parking in the garage and then entering into the building either through the lobby area down here at the bottom of the page, or could access the building above through either of the stair towers on left and right side. There was also discussion about the trash. The area located here, the TR room is our trash room. And that is both for the retail as well as the residential uses. On the upper floors, we'll see the operation of that, but it does have a compactor system to handle traditional household waste. So somebody would deposit trash in the upper levels, it would go down through a chute, be compacted at roughly a 5-to-1 ratio, and then directly into a small dumpster. Those are typically 2-yard dumpsters, which are roughly 3 feet in width and 6 feet in length. And those would be wheeled out to either of the driveway points at the rear of the site. In terms of the vehicular pickup of how that works, our traffic engineer will speak to a little bit more of how that gets picked up. But these are typically easily managed by just rolling them to the entrance points. So going up to the upper floors, and this again, Exhibit A4, drawing A2 is our first floor plan. That's the second story of the building, but it's the first residential floor. And this is a typical overall floor plan. So we have a double-loaded corridor around the building with apartments on both sides. Again, on the bottom of the page, we have the lobby with 2 elevators and a stair tower. And then we have a corridor around the perimeter, which would take you to the apartments. In addition to it, there's 2 amenity terraces where these interior units face those terraces. Those are passive recreation spaces, so they're really just some seating and some landscaping and things of that sort. It's not active uses like pickleball or any sort of amenities of that type. In addition to it, and what sets this floor aside from the rest in terms of layout is that there's also a 3,300 square foot amenity space. So that is yet to be programmed, but it would typically be a lounge, a co-working center, or also the game lounge, or just interior amenities for the tenants. In terms of apartment areas, in general, 1-bedroom apartments are averaging by type 780 square feet. 2-bedroom units are 1,300 square feet approximately, and the 3-bedroom units 1,700 square feet. The affordable units are close in size at 777 square feet for 1-bedrooms, approximately 1,100 for 2-bedrooms, and approximately 1,360 for 3-bedroom units. All portions of the building are fully handicap accessible in accordance with the federal and state regulations. All portions of the building will also be sprinklered in accordance with the requirements. And in terms of construction type, the building is what we refer to as a podium building, so that is a non-combustible first story of the building with a wood-framed, fire resistance rated construction for all the upper levels above. So in terms of the exterior design of the building, I'd like to refer to the rendering, which is a new exhibit which has not been submitted as part of the application.
We'll mark this Exhibit A5.
So Exhibit A5 is entitled A Proposed Mixed-Use Building Prepared by My Office and Undated. And that is a artist color rendering of the exterior view of the building as viewed from the corner of Joseph Street and Westfield Avenue. So as we saw on the plan, the element we have here would be the entrance to the retail or commercial space on the corner. And as you can see, the building is a 3-story residential over 1 story of commercial and parking on the first floor. And in terms of the exterior materials, what we try to do is break up the facade using a combination of vertical and horizontal demarcation. So by doing that, we can break up the facade and provide visual interest. And we do that with those demarcations as well as combinations of colors and materials and variations thereof. So the materials you see here, the light beige color, if you will, is a cast stone veneer. The remainder of the building uses a combination of brick in 2 coordinating shades. And those are true masonry materials, so they're full depth, real brick and real cast stone. And then in combination with that, we use fiber cement panels in 2 coordinating shades as well. So by doing that, we can get a very traditional and timeless architectural design with a base, a middle, and a top to break up that facade. So along the bottom here, we can see in this case, it shows some outdoor dining, presumably if it were a restaurant tenant. And towards the right, we can see this would be the middle of the building, which is that residential entrance we saw on the plan. So it'll have a canopy and that entrance at that point. In terms of the building height, the height of the building is just under 50 feet. It's at 49.92 feet, where 52 feet would be permitted by the redevelopment plan. The building has what we refer to as a flat roof, so it'll have internal roof drains, which then get connected to the system Trevor described in his testimony. And in terms of mechanical equipment for the apartments, these don't use any through-wall units or anything that would be visible from the facade. They're traditional, what we call split units, so it's what you commonly find in a single-family home. So there's a furnace or an air handler inside the apartment and condensing units located on the roof. So any of that equipment on the roof is set back behind parapets or oriented such that it wouldn't be visible from any point along the street from grade. And I believe, unless I missed something, I believe that concludes my...
We want to talk a little bit about move-ins and trash pickup and that sort of thing.
Sure. So I'll just go back to the plan real quick. And if we go... So back on ground floor plan, this was Exhibit A4. So that loading area that we saw at the front of the building would be typically used for move-ins. That would have direct access to the lobby, which has 2 elevators. So move-ins and move-outs would take place at that area. And that would be coordinated with management to schedule timing. By way of trash removal, I described how that would get to the entrance points, and then our traffic engineer will explain a little bit further how the vehicular pickup of the truck would operate.
There were also some comments in the fire memo that were architectural in nature.
Yes, I believe one of the comments was with regard to lock boxes and
Horn strobes.
and horn strobes. So we would absolutely provide those, and we'll coordinate with the fire department in terms of best locations for those. There was also a question about the EV charging stations and their locations, and those were shown on the civil engineer's plans, and they're as required by state law.
Were there any other issues in the other review letters that were architectural in nature that we had an issue with, or are we going to comply with those?
I believe we will comply. Just one other comment on the fire that I missed with regard to a radio test, and that's a requirement of the building code, so of course we will provide that. Ultimately, what that means is that we test the building for emergency responder radio coverage, and if they have insufficient signal, there's a booster system that would be installed on the building, so that will absolutely be provided. There was a comment in the planner's report, which I failed to speak about in the description of the garage, but the garage that we have here is a ventilated garage, and what that means, it's a naturally ventilated garage, so it doesn't use a mechanical system. So there's openings around the perimeter which allow the free flow of air and fumes to be exhausted. So I think the elevation that we submitted had some very simple grill patterns shown on these louvers, and we'll work with the planner to do some improved design and something aesthetically pleasing. And I believe that was all of the HVAC. There was a question in the planner's letter also, item G, which was asking about the affordable units and how they're integrated and whether they have washers and dryers. They do have washers and dryers, just as all of the other market rate units do. And in addition, all of the finishes will be equivalent to those in the market rate units.
Thank you.
Can you show the layout of the other two floors?
Sure. So this is going to be the first residential floor. And then this is, again, Exhibit A.
So the amenity terrace is just an open,
Correct. So this area here is an open, it's an open terrace that these apartments would face. There are two access points, for example. On this side, the amenity space has doors that would open onto that space, and there's also an access point here. The left amenity terrace has an access point here on the left side and another one on the south side. And so typically, this hasn't been fully designed yet, but typically what it'll have is landscaping directly around the perimeter of the space. So basically, it keeps someone from walking up to your apartment windows and offers a little level of privacy. And then just to flip through the upper levels, the two remaining levels are identical to those we saw below, with the exception that these upper floors don't have that indoor amenity space. And then lastly, that would be the third floor plan, exhibit sheet A4.
so it's not open all the way up.
It is open to the sky, yes, but it's only accessible on one level. So it's only accessible on the
Okay,
first
so on
residential.
the 2 floors, it's just open air.
That's right. Mhm.
Will the market rate and affordable housing be similar, or will affordable housing be finished differently?
No, they'll have the same finishes.
Is there any reason then you're grouping it all in one spot, or seem to congregate?
No, I think we try to distribute them. For example, here, the C1B is an affordable unit. There's a C3A here, there's one here, there's one here.
That's grouping.
There's another one on this end. I mean, I think we try to distribute them throughout the building in these areas.
You have 4 right on top of each other. Would you consider spreading them out more?
Yeah, I guess we could look at.
No change in the finish. The finishes are all the same.
The finishes are all the same, right? The finishes and the fixtures are all the same. Yeah, we can look at moving their locations.
Anyone else on the board have any questions?
Okay.
Good, Mike.
Yeah, how you doing? Was there any consideration to more retail space than what you have now?
I mean, this was the program that we were given from the client, so I'm not sure I can answer that.
If I'm not mistaken, back in 2021, when the other plan was submitted, there was 4 retail spaces. I could be wrong, but I think I remember that. And here we have 1, potentially 2. And then I see a amenity area, which is facing Westfield Avenue, which is great for the people living there, but it doesn't really bring anything to the town. So as much as residents of Cranford and Fanwood don't like what's being built there is beautiful and is bringing in a vibrant downtown area, which is what this area is supposed to be. So we're getting 138 units in 1 store. I'm just wondering, that's not creating a downtown. Was there more consideration to more frontage on Westfield Ave for retail and not more spaces to accommodate for more units?
I think part of the problem is, in recent years, retail's been hard to come by in terms of filling spaces, and we want to make sure that this space is filled and actually has tenants. So that was as one reason, and also this is about providing affordable housing. We wanted to make sure we have enough space for the units and also to provide amenity space, so.
Understood, but we won't know if they'll get filled until they're there, but if they're not there, they can't get filled. So I'm someone who's trying to be promoting this downtown area, and the less potential retail is there, there is no downtown. This is going to be the biggest structure on this street, and we're setting a precedence now by saying, hey, we can have 138 units in one store.
One or two, but I think what would be worse if we had a bunch of vacant space on the ground level, despite our efforts to fill it. I mean, that was.
Well, like I said, Fanwood doesn't think that way, Cranford's not thinking that way, and those residents aren't happy, but they're gonna have the ability to walk up and down that road and shop and eat and dine and enjoy what's being built on the property of their town, not the builder enjoying what's being built on the property of this town, which is what my concern is.
Understood.
I also have a question with the retail. Can you go back to that drawing of where you had the bricks in the building where, so where the signage is, that would be your entrance into the retail space?
Yes.
So if you had two stores there, two storefronts, you wouldn't have a second entrance, or would you, on that?
We would. So any of these locations that I'm referring to here on this exhibit, we're showing them as windows, but any of those can be replaced with doors. So if there was multiple tenants, they would have additional doors.
And have their own entrance?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And in that amenity space, what is that for?
So it hasn't been programmed yet, but we expect it's going to be the fitness center. So it's going to be the gym.
Which could be retail. Is it big enough?
It's 2,100 square feet.
Small deli, coffee shop?
It's big enough.
It could be.
I think it would take away from the amenity space in the building. Having a gym there, I think, is important for bringing in tenants. Well, we need the apartments in part to provide more affordable housing.
On the first floor of the apartments, there's an amenity room there, almost twice the size. You said there's no plan for that one right now, so that could become the gym?
Yeah, we haven't designed the interior of that space. I mean, our expectation is the gym would be on the first level, and the upper level would be a combination of co-working and tenant lounge and game room. But the space itself hasn't been designed.
Any other questions from the board members?
Yeah, one more. I know you said you would work with the engineer. So the parking spaces that are open to Westfield Ave, I saw in the notes that there was thought about doing glass instead of open bars.
Correct.
Okay. I think that's, at least on the Westfield Ave side, a much better look than looking in at the cars. So I did like that note there.
Regarding that, though, the note that I made regarding the glass, I had a conversation with the architect today about that, and that glass would take away the open-air aspects of the building, so they did not agree to that aspect. They agreed to come up with a more decorative look to those open-air elements, because the glass itself would change the building to, and I'll defer to the architect on this, to a ventilated style building if they take that route. So that's the discussion, yes.
Is it because it's not all four sides then?
Because they have to have a certain amount of open air as a percentage of the building, and alternatively, it becomes a
It seemed like that front area that would be left open is not a big portion of the building, but you're saying that would push it over.
I'm saying if that's something that would occur, it may end up resulting in a ventilated building, and, I mean, I'm just making a factual statement at this point.
Councilor?
Yes, I have a question, a few questions. Regarding the affordable units, is there a notation either on the architectural plans or the engineering plans what the income mix would be of the unit? I know you described 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, but is there an associated income level with each type of unit? Or are you just simply going to follow the Uniform Housing Affordability
Could
Control?
likely follow the applicable UHAC regulations, Mr. Cruz.
And with respect to affordable housing, obviously, there's no developer's fee for the residential portion of this development.
Correct.
But there would be for the commercial portion.
Yes.
Okay, and you would agree to pay that?
Correct.
This was raised, if the board were to approve this application, you would agree as a condition of approval to review the distribution of the affordable units in a different manner than currently shown, correct?
Correct. We'll look into that.
Where is the outdoor amenity area? So I've seen general comments, amenity area built as an indoor amenity room, another indoor amenity room with access to the outdoor amenities on the residential first floor, and an additional outdoor amenity area.
So I believe that's referring to, if I can go back to the architectural drawings on the first floor plan, so that's this amenity terrace, on these 2 amenity terraces on the upper levels.
But they're not outdoor.
They're outdoor. It's exterior space, yes. It's open to the
It's open to the sky.
Oh, all the way up? All the way up?
It's like an atrium.
Correct.
Provides light for the units as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there going to be, is there going to be any outside patios?
Like private patios or
No,
balconies?
no. For example, the commercial space, if you have a restaurant, an outside patio, anything of that type?
So the commercial space opens directly to the sidewalk, so we anticipate if there's a restaurant, they may have dining on the sidewalk.
And that would be subject to approval by the council.
If that's required, Mr. Cruz, we'd follow all applicable ordinances. If an outdoor seating space for a restaurant use requires approval of council, we'd have to obtain that approval.
I ask because I forget when COVID came about.
Right, no, it's a valid point.
Those rules were all changed.
Correct.
And I can't remember whether it was a permanent change or just a temporary change.
I have one more question. On this drawing, the amenity space, how big is that? I can't see the square footage of that.
The amenity terraces on the upper levels, they're, so
Space in the front. Says amenity space?
this one here, the
Yeah.
one that I'm pointing to at the bottom, 3,309 square feet.
So I'm a little stuck on the retail space of the 2,100 foot on the amenity space on the first floor where you said there's going to be a gym. Could that be split into a gym space of 2,100 square feet, and maybe additional 1,700 for, I don't know, you're going to put games, you said a game room or something like that?
You know, what we could do, we could agree to consider retail in that amenity space on the first floor, but not be required to put retail in there, just simply because if we can't find sufficient retail tenants for all those spaces, we want to be able to keep that as amenity space. And keep in mind, too, that the existing retail space is relatively large. I mean, it shows 1 right now, but that could be 3 or 4 different tenants, depending on the use and how that's divided up.
Just a quick question back on the retail space. Would that run into parking issues then? Because you're going to need to park additional cars for the additional retail space.
Excuse me. If you want to make a comment,
Yeah,
there's a public comment period. If you have a question, then you can ask the question.
We can have the traffic engineer address the parking issue.
When would that occur?
We have him here tonight, so it'd be
Tonight,
after
so you wouldn't.
Mr. Martinez, correct.
Okay. So if the board were inclined to do this as a condition of compliance review, you would review the parking, the amenities, is that what you're saying?
Correct, the first floor amenity space,
First floor,
the ground level.
ground level.
Can you bring that plan up on the screen?
Is that plan up?
Yeah, we have the ground floor plan, A1, sheet A1 of A4.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask, I'll ask a question. So the parking spaces to the right of the amenity space, how many spaces are there?
I'm sorry, this area here? So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces along, I assume these are the ones you're referring to, the ones directly adjacent to this yellow amenity space? Or 4 spaces in this area, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, another 8 over here.
So the four to the right, so, again, I appreciate the comment that, you got to be concerned with the 138 residents or units that go there. But as a representative of thousands of people in the town, I look at this downtown space and see how we could get better use of retail, because I agree with Mike that, that's the whole part of this redevelopment, is making sure that we can, get a nice retail space for the township. Is there any way we can eliminate those 4 spaces, make that space a little bit bigger, and now we have a nice store frontage? Most of it is gonna be retail, most of it's gonna be storefronts. I kind of disagree with saying that retail is out. I think retail is still there. We could use it in Clark, restaurants, something like that. Even a nice deli would work there. So, I don't know, I'm just thinking that, is that possible?
We could have the traffic engineer talk about that, but I think we're getting into an issue here now where we may be deficient in parking if we eliminate those spaces. Correct, but I think I don't know that we have too much in the way of excess parking spaces.
Jim, can you speak into the mic?
And that's without the credit for you.
All right, board, no side comments? Paul, go on the record, if you've got something to say.
Sorry about the sidebar conversation. There was a conversation discussing between us about the availability of parking should the amenity area be converted to retail. And I believe Mr. Troutman said there was a 5-space surplus today. You heard the site engineer initially testify as well regarding the amount of off-street parking, that they did not take credit for the EV credit. So at least per the law, additional parking could be credited per state law on the EV credit and not create a planned deviation under that pretense as well. But point being, what the applicant said was that they were trying to meet the parking requirement without taking that EV credit to their credit as well.
Well, just to confirm, to the extent that Mr. O'Connor in his September 10th, 2025 report have any architectural comments, you'll comply with those. And the same thing is true with Mr. Ricky's September 25, 2025 report. To the extent there are architectural comments in there, you'll comply with those.
Yes.
There was a comment about bicycle parking and a cover for the bicycle parking. You didn't address that. How are you going to address bicycle parking?
I apologize if I missed that. I believe there's proposed bike racks to be in the garage, which were not identified on the parking plan, but we will provide bike racks inside the garage.
Do we know approximately where those would go on the plan, or work
So
with
we
the
need to just finalize some utilities and things like that, but there's some open areas. For example, at the northeast corner of the garage here, we allocated a space which could be used, as well as some other areas along the layout.
Okay, thank you.
All right, one other thing I saw in the notes, the units facing the interior, are they going to have balconies or no?
No, none of the
No,
units.
so it'll be just a window or just?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, seeing no other questions of the board, anyone from the public wishing to come forward and address the testimony of this witness, please do so. General comments can be made at the end. Please come forward, state your name and address.
Barbara White, 7 Harding Avenue. When you were saying about the trash with the compactor, is there going to be a recycle unit?
Yes.
That will be separate.
You have to speak into a...
I'm asking if they'll have a recycle unit by the trash.
Yeah, so there's on each of the floors, there's a trash chute, and then there's a recycling chute as well. So somebody would deposit recycling, goes right into the dumpster.
You showed what the front of the building will look like. I'm going to be looking at the back of the building for my property. What's that going to look like?
So we don't have a colorized rendering. I can show you the elevations, but the idea is it's all the same architecture, it's all the same materials, it's all the same colors and finishes. So it's the same around all four sides.
But with no color in it, okay.
The image we only have one color image, yes.
Why don't you bring it up for her?
Sure. So this is drawing A6. This here would be the front elevation. So this is Westfield Avenue. So if we go through the other pages, this would be along Broadway, I believe. No, I'm sorry. This would be the right side elevation. This would be the Broadway elevation, and this would be the Joseph Street elevation. So you can't appreciate the colors on these images, but as you can see, it's all the same architectural features and materials.
And how close is the building to the actual curb of Broadway? The building itself?
So I would have to refer to the civil engineer's drawing. So on Broadway, his proposed setback is 11.9 feet to the property line. The property line appears to be pretty close to the front of the parking spaces, so let's round that to 12 feet to the parking. So from the building to that property line.
Again, on the front of the building, I was at a meeting a couple of years ago, where it showed retail on one side and retail on the other, either 1,000 or 2,000 square feet each. Now you're going to have a gym looking out onto Westfield Avenue, possibly a gym and gym equipment out there. That doesn't sound very pretty.
So, I mean, I think from the exterior, it'll look like a retail space. It could be a public gym. It's all going to be the same type of glass, type of glazing that you would have on a retail space. And
Yeah, but you're going to look at people on bikes and treadmills or lifting weights. That doesn't seem very good to me. That's it right now on this. Thank you.
John Raffoa, 40 Broadway. Could you just mention the height again?
It was just under 50 feet, I believe, 49.92.
And what's a typical two-story house height? Plus or minus, I know it varies, but 25 feet?
I think 35 is a typical zoning requirement for a two-story house.
Okay. So this will look, and I know you don't control, I think you mentioned it's part of the redevelopment plan you're in compliance with?
That's right.
Okay.
Permitted 52.
Well, I don't want you looking into my daughter's bedroom. That's the challenge, right? So the height. Is there anything that we can do to accommodate a lower height? I don't know, drop a floor?
That would result in a substantial reduction in the units, and again, this is in compliance with the zoning requirements for height.
Balconies, you mentioned, yes or no? No balconies. No balconies. Windows open, windows close?
Meaning operable?
Yeah.
They're operable.
They're operable windows, okay. And then I should have asked this, maybe, I don't know if you know, time for construction, if approval, like how long does something like this usually take? I should have asked Travis, but.
I 2 years, I couldn't tell you for sure. The
Yeah,
applicant would have to.
Okay, thank you.
James Scolo, 73 Halliday. Can you bring up the parking garage again? Sure. 73 Halliday Street.
Sorry, missed you.
Now, is 138 a set number of apartments, or can that be downsized? 'Cause if you take away these parking spaces to the right and add retail, as Mr. Triola said, you can downsize some apartments, and then you can have enough spaces for smaller apartments, and then more retail on the ground floor. Is that a possibility?
So I'm not sure I can answer that as an architect, whether, you know, I mean, this is the project that we have. I don't know that I'm the person to answer that.
Just to add to that, I don't think even if we reduce those parking spaces, that would result in a reduction in units. And we'll have our traffic engineer touch on the whole parking space issue.
He was saying you need 1.7 spaces for apartments, right?
Correct.
And the gentleman before me said he lives on Broadway, and that part backing up will be impossible. If you downsize the building a little bit, take away some apartments, and make retail on the whole first floor, you should have enough spaces for apartments and spaces for people to come and go to the retail stores, because we don't have paid parking like Westfield and Cranford do. None of these spaces will go back to the community. They give back to Clark, and they come in.
We can have our traffic engineer talk about all those issues.
All right, just want to see if that's a possibility or not. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to come forward? Seeing no one, oh,
Gabrielle Aruda again, 33C Parkway Drive. I'm wondering if there's any possibility to have that, with the availability of time before the building is constructed, to see that one of the retail spaces is, sorry, I'm working on it, that one of the retail spaces could, if you could help support a Clark resident to start a business, that would somehow better, you know, generate more well-being for the community. Because I hear the word revitalization being spoken, and I'm not sure what we're going after. At the end of the day, it's a deli.
Do you have a question, an architectural question?
It's only, so again, it's the first time I've ever come to one of these meetings, so I only have to be able to direct questions to them.
Yes.
And not to you guys in relation to what could happen.
Correct. It's a question for the witness. If
Got
you-
it.
His testimony.
Understand.
your general,
Thank
you
very
have like a general statement, which sounds like a nice one. At the end of everything, you could come up and make any statement within reason that you
Got
would
it.
like, and this sounds like that would be at that time, because it's not a true architectural question.
So as the property owners, and that's you, not you, right? I'm the attorney. Oh, the attorney, okay.
The attorney can't say anything.
But the property owners could potentially lobby the state for funding to be able to provide some kind of more creative use of retail space where the property owners are making their rent, which I can't imagine would be that. My parents own the oldest building in downtown Cranford. Rent is rent. I feel like it would be more expensive in Cranford than it would be in Clark to rent out a space where we could actually do something to improve the lives of the citizens of Clark and actually create more of a downtown as a priority, given the tax incentives that everybody's getting to be here, so that the community would get something out of it.
That's a comment, not a question for the architect. You can make it at the end. You can also take it up with the Township Council.
Great, thank you, sir.
Hi, Carmine Savoca, 46 Broadway. I was just wondering, why could you put the park in the side ones in front of Westfield Ave? Because you have all your stores in the front. You want to make that like a downtown. Now you got parking in the back. Why could you put the the parking, like all the side ones, all down Westfield Ave.
Is there an architectural question for this witness? That sounds like a traffic engineer question, so you have.
Whatever.
Okay. So do you have a question for this witness?
No.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, there's been some discussion back and forth as to the retail, and I'd like to ask Mr. Ricky a question. Does the redevelopment plan provide for a specific amount or square footage of retail, or is that left to the discretion of the developer property owner?
I want to confirm, Mr. Cruz, but there is no specific requirement in the plan, and that's something that was historic for the plan when it was initially adopted in 2019. I did pull up the old plan for the property while sitting here, and you know the board is accurate. The old approval, I believe, had 7,850 square feet of commercial space compared to, what's it, 5,800 square feet today. So there is a reduction from the previous plan.
Is there any requirement in the DTV zone for commercial space on the first floor with units, residential units above it?
In terms of the amount of space, no, it's written with a use basis that use has to be, you know, dedicated for, you know, non-residential commercial purposes. So what's really occurring here is the amount of parking that's required for the residential spaces at 1.7 spaces per unit, you know, arguably is a conservative amount of parking for this type of land use. Historically, what I've seen since I've been involved in the town and at previous projects, that the town is quite concerned about delivering adequate parking for residential uses. And the way that this project is set up, it's set up that all the parking is really on the interior of the building dedicated for that purpose. So if what you're almost suggesting, in a matter of speaking, is there the ability to share some of that space? And I don't think that's the intent of the applicant here. To encourage the retail and to have additional parking, that's why you see the streetscape, the angled parking being proposed in a public purpose to assist in these purposes. In this size space, I always thought with the wide sidewalks at 5,800 square feet, it's almost perfect for a nice restaurant, is what it is. I'm not sure if the applicant is at liberty to discuss any type of future tenants here, but it seems like it's a restaurant type of, it seems like it would fit quite well. But, so what I'm really trying to say is that you have competing interests, parking, retail, and I think if you wanted to encourage more retail, you would have to reduce the amount of parking that's being required for those residential units. So it comes to be, what is the township's objective here, more or less?
But the redevelopment plan does not address a specific amount of retail.
Yes, but I just wanted to say some of those additional thoughts that you have to consider. It's not as easy to just say, hey, we want more retail. Something would have to be given back for that to occur.
Mr. Chairman, before we get to our next witness, which would be our traffic engineer, I think we're running on close to 2 hours here. Could we take like maybe a 5 to 10 minute recess so we could maybe talk over the issues internally regarding the retail and parking, and then come back?
We could give you a 10-minute recess.
Thank you.
When are we coming back?
9:30.
9:30.
Before we move on to our traffic engineer, I just want to have Mr. Martinez just briefly go over a proposal that we have, taking into consideration some of the comments from the board members about eliminating additional parking spaces to create about 3,600 square feet of retail at the corner of the property. And we'll have our traffic engineer talk about the traffic impacts of that. But Mr. Martinez, if you could just briefly go over what we'd be proposing.
So again, on the ground floor plan on Exhibit A1, what the applicant is proposing is to take the parking at this area, which is a total of 12 parking spaces, eliminate those and replace it with additional retail space. So that would be resulting in roughly an additional 3,600 square feet of retail space. And I think in addition, it would also satisfy one of the concerns about the facade, where it would continue the look of the windows across. So again, roughly 3,600 square feet additional and elimination of 12 parking spaces.
Does that include the amenity space?
And I'm sorry, the amenity space would remain. This would be 3,600 square feet in addition to that.
So the amenity space would be there, and then to the right of that would be additional retail space.
Right. So generally, if we were to take that yellow area and just stretch it out to the east, it would expand that use.
I know it's hard to say right now without re-rendering, but would that almost include the same type of entrance from the corner as on the southwest side? Or would that be a frontage entrance?
No, I think it would be just the regular entrance with the awnings that we have. I think having that unique element on the corner should stand.
Okay.
So that's not something you're considering, that's something you'd be offering us?
Yes,
Correct.
that's something that's being proposed, yes.
Does that offer result in any waivers or deviations or variances?
No, if we take an EV credit or a partial EV credit, and we'll have our traffic engineer talk about that, but provided we take the EV credit, there would be no variances or design waivers.
Do you agree with that, Mr. Ricky?
We'll confirm, Mr. Troutman, but yes, I agree, and with my knowledge of this project, yes.
Thank you for taking the time to do that. Any other discussion on this matter? Hearing none, you can bring your next witness up.
Thank you. I'll have our traffic engineer next.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Nicholas Kennedy,
Solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will tell the truth,
I will tell the truth
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Please state your full name, spell it, and your employer.
Sure, it's Nicholas Kennedy, Nicholas. Kennedy is Kennedy. I'm a project manager at Stonefield Engineering and Design. It's located at 92 Park Avenue in Rutherford, New Jersey.
Mr. Kennedy, if you could just briefly for the board state your education, experience, and licensure.
Absolutely. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. My license is current and in good standing. I hold a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the...
Motion to accept?
Second, all in favor? Any opposed? May continue.
Thank you. Mr. Kennedy, I believe you have Exhibit A2 before you. If you could just briefly go through an overview of the traffic.
Sure. So not to repeat, sorry, just getting set up. Not to repeat too much of the testimony that was already given, but the site as it exists today is it's an old grocery store, the A&P grocery store. The existing site also has a bank, which is located on the corner of Westfield Ave and Joseph Street. Really what you have is the property is bounded by Westfield Avenue to the south, Joseph Street to the west, and then Broadway to the north. Again, as Trevor mentioned, there's 5 curb cuts on the site today. There's 1 full movement driveway on Westfield Avenue that's closed, it's fenced off today. There's an ingress-only driveway to the bank, again on Westfield Avenue. There's an egress-only driveway, there's a full movement driveway on Joseph Avenue to the bank, and then there's 2 full movement driveways on Broadway. So again, that's just to give it a little context about what's on the site today, the existing curb cuts that exist, and really an overarching look at how the property looks in its current state. As far as what's proposed on the project, or on the site, 138 units as we went over, ground level parking, and then floors 2 through 4 would contain the residential units. There's been obviously a lot of discussion about the retail space, which at this point is close to 9,000 square feet, I believe. When you look at adding the retail space on the right, it's about 9,000 square feet. And really what we're trying to do as far as access on this site is consolidate the curb cuts that already exist. So as part of pedestrian safety and vehicular safety, the more access points you have is the more conflicting points along a roadway network. Obviously, as I mentioned, there's 5 existing access points, and we're limiting that down to 2. So we have what will be a right-in, right-out driveway on Joseph, and then a full movement driveway on Broadway. One of the parts of this application is converting Joseph Street into a one-way northbound roadway. Really, the idea behind this was as part of the redevelopment plan, angled parking is required along Joseph Street. I believe it's 11 total spaces. And the width that we have along that roadway, you can only have one way with angled parking spaces. So what we did was along our frontage, we would angle the parking spaces at 45 degrees and then provide one lane of northbound travel. What we really also wanted to understand is how would this affect the traffic volumes on Joseph, but also not only on Joseph, but also in the surrounding area. So obviously people today could drive southbound on Joseph between Broadway and Westfield. They could drive northbound from Westfield to Broadway, and that southbound movement would be eliminated. What we found when we went out there, we conducted counts, is Joseph, is not a very highly utilized roadway. There was about 30 cars within the peak hour that traveled southbound, most of which were turning right, probably towards the Parkway. And what we looked at in the general area is this area kind of operates as a grid. You have Westfield Avenue, which is the southerly roadway, and Broadway up to the north. And then there's about 12 streets that connect the two, most of which are two-way streets. Obviously, Joseph Street here would be converted to one-way. And what you're going to see in the future if Joseph gets converted to one-way northbound is those southbound vehicles will use any number of the different streets that are, to the east or to the west to travel between the two roadways. It's our understanding that they'd probably be dispersed throughout the roadway network. And again, this is not a highly utilized roadway. You get about one car every 2 to 3 minutes. So we don't think that conversion from a two-way roadway into one-way northbound will cause a significant impact to the roadway network as a whole. Moving on to the parking, which I suppose has changed a little since the beginning of the plan. But in total, we have 77 tandem spaces, so a total of 154 parking spaces. If you look at them as tandem, that's 77 tandem spaces. And then 82 regular parking spaces, so obviously not tandem. That's a total of 236 parking spaces. We have agreed to eliminate 12 of those, which brings us down to 224 parking spaces. We are required 235 parking spaces. Looking at the EV credits, we can take a credit for up to 23 spaces, which brings our parking requirement down to 212 spaces. So we would provide in the updated plan with the additional retail space, we would provide 224, and we would require 212 when taking that credit into account. Looking at the on-street parking spaces, again, we are required by the redevelopment plan to provide angled parking spaces both on Joseph and on Broadway. The total count was 11, on our plan is 11 spaces on Joseph and 16 spaces on Broadway. We also provide a total of 11 parallel parking spaces on Westfield Avenue for a total of 38 on-street parking spaces. Not all striped out, but just to give some context, today between the 3 streets, Broadway, Joseph, and Westfield, there's only about 18 on-street spaces. So we're more than doubling the on-street parking in the general vicinity of our site. Again, I just want to reiterate that we are required by the redevelopment plan to provide those angled spaces along both Joseph and Broadway. And with the closing of the curb cuts on Westfield, we're providing an additional 3 or 4 parking spaces on Westfield Avenue. Again, a loading zone would be provided along Westfield Avenue, 45 feet. It would be used for move-in, move-outs, deliveries, and the like. Trash would be privately hauled and coordinated with the property manager. That would be picked up likely on Joseph Street, utilizing the driveway there. And again, that would all be coordinated with building management. It would be wheeled out, picked up, and the trash would go on its way. I just want to try to touch on a couple things that were brought up. The retail space associated with this project and this redevelopment plan doesn't necessarily have its own parking requirement. The requirement is 1.7 spaces per unit. That we comply with, and obviously changing the plan a little, we comply with the EV credit. There's no actual requirement for square footage of what the retail space needs in terms of parking. I think the idea of the redevelopment plan and requiring the on-street angled space on Broadway and on Joseph was that would cover the parking that would be needed for the retail space. Again, we do provide, just in the vicinity of our site and along our frontage on those 3 roads, 38 parking spaces for about 9,000 square feet of retail. It's about 4 spaces per 1,000 square feet, give or take, which again, I think is more than sufficient. Obviously, these spaces are open for public use. They could be used for things across the street and whatnot, but I think we're trying to provide as much on-street parking in this area as we possibly can. Really just to kind of put things in perspective and kind of tie a bow, I think this plan really conforms with the redevelopment plan and the ideas within that redevelopment plan. Obviously, as we mentioned, the parking is compliant. We're taking the EV credit at this point. We're providing the angled parking spaces on Joseph and Broadway. All the tandem spaces on this site will be assigned to 2 or 3 bedroom units. There will be no 2 one-bedroom units that would share a tandem parking space. The tandem spaces would all be assigned to 1 individual unit. We're promoting the pedestrian safety here. We're closing curb cuts. We're providing bump outs at the corner of Joseph and Westfield. We have wide sidewalks, 10 feet on Broadway and Joseph, between 12 and 20 feet on Westfield. So I think we're really promoting the pedestrian safety and walkability around the site. And again, this is a site that would not have a detrimental impact to the roadway network. Comparing the traffic volumes, albeit understanding that the grocery store has been closed for many years now, the traffic volumes at this site are substantially less than a grocery store. And again, that's not to say that there won't be more traffic, because again, the grocery store is closed, but it's more to say that this site has seen more traffic volume than this proposed development will generate. Again, that was 15, 20 years ago, but again, it's a site that's seen this much traffic volume, and we're substantially less than that. I've went over all the review letters, the traffic review, the engineering review, and the planning review letter. As far as traffic comments, they're fairly minimal. I think we touched on most throughout all of our testimony, but I have no issue complying with anything within any of those 3 letters.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. That's all we have in terms of direct testimony at this time.
So you're saying that the absence of any specific requirements on the commercial units, you didn't consider that for parking requirements?
The redevelopment plan doesn't have a parking requirement that specifically says you need this many spaces per square feet. It just, I think it contemplates the on-street spaces being utilized for that retail space. What I will say, with about 9,000 square feet of retail, a 4 per 1,000 square foot parking ratio is pretty sufficient for the size retail we'll have here. Again, obviously, these aren't dedicated to just this retail space. But I think we're trying to maximize the amount of on-street parking that we have.
I believe other applications have come before us and they've assumed usage in their commercial space. So you're saying 4 spaces per 1,000 and there's 9,000 square feet, so it'll be 36 more parking spaces may be generated?
Yeah, and that's what I think I'm saying, the 38 parking spaces just that we have around the vicinity of our site. I think that's why the redevelopment plan contemplated those on-street spaces, that they would be utilized for that retail space. So we provide just on our frontage 38 spaces at a 4 per 1,000 square feet for 9,000 square feet of retail. That would be about 36 parking spaces.
Mr. O'Connor, do you have any thoughts on that, or?
I believe that's in compliance with our ordinance standards.
But other applications, not this one, but other applications have come forward and given us parking for their commercial spaces.
They've given you parking for the commercial space, and these gentlemen have added 27 spaces that don't exist out there right now to account for that.
As angled parking, they don't exist, but there's space out there that cars could, it's not exactly that amount, maybe they've increased it by a percentage, but there's still parking that could occur, just normal street side parking.
Correct. Their testimony is that there's going to be a total of 38 spaces provided after this project is completed. And I believe you provided a number that there were.
Yeah, so today, I think this will help clarify a little. Today, with the curb cuts that are in place right now, there's about 18 parking spaces total around the frontage. So that counts Broadway, Joseph, which no parking is allowed on our side of the street, and Westfield. There's about 18 parking spaces. They're not all striped, so give or take 1 or 2. What we would have is 38 total striped parking spaces. So we're more than doubling the amount of parking around our perimeter compared to the existing condition. And again, that goes along with the number of curb cuts we're reducing. Obviously, today you can't block a curb cut. So we only have 2. Today there's 5. And then obviously we're providing parking along Joseph where it doesn't exist today.
And I'm sure the EV locations will be reconfigured with the changes here. There's 12 shown. How are they going to be assigned? They're going to be open all the time, or they're going to be specifically signed to a unit?
They're usually signed and marked.
No, but I mean assigned to a unit.
Assigned, yeah. So all of the parking will be assigned. So if you have an EV car, that parking space could be assigned to you. Obviously, if you don't have an EV car, an EV space won't be assigned to you.
So they're not for general use, they're just specific to the apartment
Correct.
complex. I did notice one of the EVs were showed as a tandem unit. I guess the lucky person would have 2 electric cars.
I think we could work to pick out the best EV spaces. I know that was part of the fire letter too. So we are more than happy to work with the engineer to pick out the best locations for the EV. But again, our idea is that all the spaces would be assigned, so no EV car would have to, or no non-electric car would have to park in an EV space and vice versa.
And you did mention that on Joseph Street, there's still parking prohibited on the apartment side, as well as Broadway. There's parking restrictions, times. I guess that's all been discussed, and that'll be all lifted by the town. On Broadway, you can't park from 1 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then from 4 to 6 p.m. It's a town sign, so I assume somebody's talked about lifting it.
Yeah, we have to, if necessary, we'd have to go back to the Township Council. But that would be addressed as a condition of approval.
Anyone else on the board have any questions, comments?
I have one question. So Joseph Street is now going to go from Westfield to Broadway.
Correct.
The street prior towards Broadway, which is Lincoln, is also going from Westfield to Broadway. So we have 2 one-ways, consecutive streets. Have you done any study, any thought about Joseph Street going the other way, one way?
I think the problem there is the businesses across the street. There's 3 driveways on that side of the street going down Joseph. you would never be able to fit the 11 parking spaces that are required with those driveways. And again, there's multiple streets to the east and to the west that are two-way that could facilitate southbound movements.
Any other questions from the board?
I have just, I know you indicated that it's been covered, and I agree with you, but I'd specifically like you to address Mr. Troutman's letter of September 29, 2025, points 7, 8, and 9 on page 3.
Absolutely. Let me just open it up.
And actually, Albert, before he gets to that, item 2, it would have been nice if you could have submitted those traffic counts I asked for. Can you submit those, please?
Absolutely, we can submit those. 7, 8, 9, I'll start with 7. It's about the trash removal. Again, trash would be, the trash room is located along Westfield. It would be rolled to one of the driveways where it would be privately hauled off-site. Move in, move out. Again, we have that loading zone along Westfield. It's 45 feet long. Move in and move out would be scheduled so that no two times overlap. And obviously, that's where your typical moving truck, U-Haul, really of any size, could fit in a 45-foot loading zone. And deliveries, same thing. They would utilize that loading zone. Again, it's 45 feet. Your typical FedEx, Amazon, UPS trucks, that's more than enough to accommodate the sizes of those vehicles.
I don't have anything else.
All right. Seeing no other questions of the board, if anyone from the public wishes to come forward and ask any questions of the specific testimony you just heard, please do so. Any general comments, concerns can be addressed after all the witnesses have been.
Barbara White, 7 Harding Avenue. For the parking on Broadway, how much of the street's going to be cut off now? Because it's not a super wide street, and it's heavily trafficked.
So, can you hear me? Oh,
yep.
Okay. So the street heading eastbound is going to be 18 feet wide. For 60-degree parking, that's what is required. You know, as a traffic engineer, often streets are only 12 feet wide, so we're providing more than ample space as far as street width heading in that direction.
And I think there was a dimensional question from the public. They don't understand that the angled parking spaces are eating into the right-of-way. That's how you're gaining the dimension. They're concerned that you're just putting angled spaces against the existing curb line, whereas you're recessing the curb line up against the right-of-way line to create that additional dimension, and it does work. I verified it.
Yeah. So the angled space is also a majority of where the angled spaces are today is sidewalk and landscaping. Again, we'd provide an 18-foot lane, which is more than sufficient to accommodate movements there.
Is that 18 feet total width of the street or just?
Just heading eastbound.
Just this one direction?
Yes, I'll say our side of the street heading eastbound would be 18 feet wide. I don't have an exact dimension.
So the street will still be 40 feet or so wide?
Yeah, I don't have an exact dimension, but it'll be 36 probably to 40.
How are they going to back out of those spots? There's a lot of traffic. I can't even get out of my street and make a left turn onto Broadway, and I'm on Harding right behind you. Yeah, and that's now, before you have all these, this was very poorly planned. It's too big. The scope of this is too big. Too many apartments, too many cars. What about when somebody in an apartment who only has the 2 cars can go in their space if they have it, or if they have the one with the 1 space? What if they have company? Are they going to be coming down my street and parking in front of my house? I don't want that. I don't want these extra cars. It's bad enough on Lionel Street around the corner from me. There's a grandfathered 4-family house with no off-the-street parking. There's no room for a driveway. My husband shovels the snow in front of my house, and they come and park in front of it. And then I'm going to get other people from this apartment building and having their company coming in front of my house. I mean, you're ruining the values of our property,
Is there a
and
question?
I'm not happy about it.
Is there a question?
Yeah, how are people gonna, what are you gonna do when they start parking on the side streets in front of the residential houses? Are you gonna do anything about it, or are you gonna put signs up, residents only?
You go before the
parking?
council and ask for, discuss it with them. In the other areas of the town, they've had resident permit, where you have to get a permit. When they had issues with the school in this area, they need permits to be parked across the street to keep the kids from parking there. So the town council will work with you if that situation occurs.
I'm not happy about it. Let me see what else I had.
Again, these are specific questions to his testimony. If you have general comments that you don't like the project or you love the project, there'll be an opportunity to state that.
Thank you.
Okay, now, you mentioned the bump out on Broadway. Where is that going to exist?
If I said Broadway, I misspoke. I meant Westfield, so I could show you real quick. Sorry. So the bump out is here, and that's really, as Trevor mentioned, pedestrian safety. It slows vehicles down from making this turn, and it generally just provides a wider and bigger pedestrian area at this corner. So it's really a safety mechanism. Obviously, it also kind of blocks off where the parallel parking spaces on Westfield are.
So there's only one bump out.
I believe.
That's the only one.
I believe so, yes. Oh, I apologize. There is a bump out here too. You'll see that the landscape and the sidewalk goes up towards the end of those angled parking spaces and then down. So again, all for pedestrian measures in this area. And again, that was part of the redevelopment plan to enhance the safety for pedestrians in this area.
I'm not a fan of bump outs because on Lincoln Avenue, it's a mess. Let's see. I guess that's all I had right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Claire Labruno, 20 Post. My question was, you referenced several times saying the redevelopment plan required the angled parking on Joseph Street. Could you just clarify, because I'm not familiar, when you say that, are you talking about like a town's redevelopment plan, or you're talking about this project's specific redevelopment plan? It's not clear to me.
I'm talking about the redevelopment plan for this property, and I could read the exact language out of the plan.
It's a township document.
So that's based on the township's requirements to meet the parking allotment you need. Is that correct? So in order for you to meet the town's required spots, it requires taking part of Joseph Street and altering it. Okay.
Yep.
So the next question is, you spoke about the traffic study that you did on Joseph Street. Did you do any traffic study on Westfield Avenue? Because my concern is traffic traveling eastbound on Westfield Avenue that's then going to turn onto Joseph Street. And I mean, frankly, if you go down Westfield Avenue almost any time of day headed in that direction, it is backed up. So I guess, was there any study done that considered the traffic on Westfield Avenue as in relation to, what the plan is for the street?
Yep, we did traffic counts at actually both intersections, so Joseph Street with Broadway and Joseph Street with Westfield. As I mentioned earlier, we're more than happy to submit those to the board. But again, a development like this, a residential development, would not generate a substantial amount of traffic. Obviously, we have two driveways, so you could use either the Broadway driveway or the Joseph driveway. It wouldn't be every car coming into this site is making that left turn from Westfield onto Joseph and into the driveway. Traffic would be more dispersed throughout the network than that. And again, we're more than happy to submit the counts that we conducted.
And when you spoke about, this site going to, like, I did shop at when this was a grocery store. So when you say it's going to create like less traffic than the store had, it's a little like, what is that based on, I guess?
So essentially, how traffic engineers analyze sites like this is we project the trip generation of each site, how many cars go in, how many cars go out. When you look at the size of the grocery store, and again, albeit it's been closed for some time now, when you look at the size of the grocery store that existed on the site, and you look at how many units would be on this site, the grocery store generates substantial more traffic than a residential development. Again, I can't mention enough, we do understand the grocery store has been closed. It's more to say that this property specifically has seen traffic volumes greater than 138 unit development would generate.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, John Greaves, 30 Parkway Drive. I actually had a question on Joseph Street. So you have these spots that are taking up the street. I guess one question would be, is like the benefit to the town for giving that space up is just the additional spots that are created by the angle? I'm trying to figure, because we're kind of giving up a little piece of the town's land, right? So the extra spots, that's sort of the benefit for the cost?
I'll address that question. And what has occurred, as has been described, is this property went through the redevelopment process. There was a study done as to whether or not the property as a whole met the redevelopment criteria. The planning board reviewed that study in a public hearing, recommended to the council that it designate the property as an area in need of redevelopment. The next step after that is preparing a redevelopment plan which is specific to this property, and it acts like a mini master plan. It also acts as an ordinance. The council introduced the redevelopment plan as an ordinance. That ordinance was referred to the planning board for review as to whether or not it was substantially consistent with the master plan. The planning board found that the redevelopment plan for this property was substantially consistent with the master plan and referred it back to the council, and the council then adopted the redevelopment plan. The redevelopment plan specifically says on page 13, parking requirements, and it talks about non-residential, no off-street parking is required, rather angled parking improvements shall be made on the easterly side of Joseph Street right-of-way and the southern side of Broadway right-of-way. A minimum of 11 on-street angled parking spaces shall be provided on Joseph Street and 14 angled on-street spaces on Broadway for public use. That is what this testimony has centered on.
Okay.
And it is the council, not this board, the council adopting what is in essence a zoning ordinance for this property and setting forth the parking requirements both off-street and on-street.
Okay, so that cost benefit was weighed by the council previously, and that's how that came about.
Whatever the council does in analyzing the costs and benefit of a zoning ordinance, that's what occurred here. The law presumes that the council knows what parking requirements are needed, what the traffic requirements are needed, and they act accordingly. And so that was the basis for the basis for the testimony you've heard and back and forth is all on the redevelopment plan.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. It's very, very good explanation. One other question I had, and I think you might be an answer, is so that's the one side of Joseph Street, right? Those are the spots, but right now you could park on the shoulder on the other side of Joseph Street. Would this narrowing of the street make it so that you don't have parking on the other side of the street? I know this is like kind of on the edge of what you're doing there, but.
Correct. You wouldn't be able to park on what I'll call the left side of Joseph Street. It's 15 feet proposed, so, taking that back 8 feet to try to put parallel parking spaces wouldn't work. What I will say is that the parking provided on Joseph Street with the 11 spaces that we have that are angled is far more than the parallel parking spaces, or presumably parallel parking spaces that are there now. I think.
But only on one side. So do you count, is that counting the parallel you would have on the other side of Joseph Street too, or was that counting more compared to
Currently, the
one
right side of Joseph Street is a no parking.
You can't
There's no
park on the
parking
right
there.
side of Joseph Street.
Oh, okay.
So the left side.
Okay, you're right.
coming
There's about
southbound-
5 spots that you could probably use on the left side, and 11 spots are greater than those 5, so we're probably getting a net of 5 or 6 spots.
Exactly.
And then just finally, the angled spots, they're a little different than parallel parking. How is that going to affect, like, snow is actually the first thing I was thinking about with this. I'm sure there's some idea, I just was curious what changes or adjustments like DPW or anything might have to do.
It's a great question. Snow would obviously have to be removed from them. There's a few landscape areas that they could be either snow blown or shoveled into, kind of around the angled spaces. That could all be coordinated with property management and the township.
Okay, that was it. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, Eric Rodriguez, 12 Bartel. So I have just one question regarding where the trash room is located and, trafficking the trash from there to one of the egress driveways. Are there any potential, health concerns or anything with that amount of volume of trash having to be, carted that way as opposed to had they located the trash room closer to those locations?
I don't think I'm particularly the person to answer this question. What I can say is I've worked on hundreds of residential projects very similar to this. It's not necessarily a very far distance that it would be essentially traveling. As far as the health concerns, I'm a traffic engineer, so it's not really in my realm.
Thank you.
Hi again, Gabrielle Ruda, 33C Parkway Drive. When you work on Joseph Street, you're going to have to jackhammer up the street to change its orientation in some manner?
Possibly. The actual construction, how it would be constructed, is not determined yet. But obviously, that would go through the township and all the agencies that it would have to as far as construction of the roadway.
Gotcha. I was just wondering if any consideration had gone into the dry cleaners that have been across the street for decades and the use of PERC, which is now legal, I think, with the EPA rule is not allowing people to use it after 2024. So the chance that the ground might be contaminated with PERC, and then if that's dug up, and then what would happen to the project if it ends up being contaminated land there?
Really a civil engineering question, but I believe that we've looked into that issue. We've done the appropriate due diligence, and there's no contamination on the site.
Anyone else? Please come forward, state your name and address.
John Orfoa, 40 Broadway. I guess you know it by now, but a couple things. So I just want to point out, I won't say that then. So we are indeed cutting into the property. It's not the existing curb line that's there for the angled parking on Broadway, right? We're cutting in, right? Because that's the existing right here where the green is. That's existing curb. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Let me just flip back to the existing conditions plan. So the existing curb line is right here. Oh, sorry, that's the walkway. The existing curb line is here where kind of this red line is. Now, the proposed, I believe, is actually in the same spot, and really what we're doing is putting the parking in this area that you see grass here, I guess where the fingers are. You see the concrete walk, and then there's some additional space between the property line and the sidewalk. That's where the angled parking spaces are going. The actual width of Broadway is not getting smaller. It's the same size. It'll be 18 feet wide in, you could go ahead.
Yeah, no, I get it. But, so where the curb is today, where someone could technically, we're not doing that, we're getting rid of that. Yeah, that's what, we're cutting
Correct.
into the property, which is fine. I was
Well,
just clarifying.